Hi, folks. Welcome back to Gun Guys. Bill Wilson here, Wilson Combat, and I'm here visiting with my old buddy Ken Hackathorn. And today we're going to talk about the speed versus accuracy in your firearms training. Ken, what's your opinion on speed versus accuracy?
Well, it's kind of a hot topic these days. The reality is we know accuracy always wins over speed, always. Now, we'd like to have a fast, accurate hit. Everybody knows that. Unfortunately, we live in a world today where everybody's obsessed with speed.
And the splits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, everybody talks splits and everybody wants to, talk about how quick they can do things. And while that has its merits, in the real world, if you look at, and good Lord knows you can watch a lot of surveillance videos today and see what really happens. And you'll notice in every case, it's not how fast you are, it's how quickly you deliver a good, effective hit. So I think there's some disconnect.
Yeah.
I can remember, I thought one of the first disciplines that really brought that to mind, which you were pretty good at, was the bowling pin shoots. Remember the old second chance hits?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't care how fast you were. If you didn't have a precision shot, things didn't go well.
Well, a poor hit was better than a miss, because now you knock the pin down, it's rolling around the table.
Yeah,
Now you, as we always said back then, when we were shooting those matches, you had a lot of dead wood to clear off then.
Yeah. So I think that was one of the original shooting disciplines where people had to come to grasp with the fact that no matter how fast they were, if they weren't exceptionally accurate, they pretty much lost.
Yeah.
So, and I think it still goes to this day. I think part of it is, again, if you shoot, you said it earlier in one of the segments, smaller targets make you slow down. We got a big 18-inch wide, about 30-inch tall target or something like that. And basically with the body, if you take the 6-inch head, you got a 26-inch high body. It's a big target.
Yeah, 18 by 24 inch.
Yeah, most people tend to think, well, I'll just hit the target and you're okay. Well, that doesn't really the way it equates. The IDPA 8-inch circle, we both know, is a harder target to hit than the USPSA 6 by, 12? 6 by whatever is the A zone, because it allows you a lot of up and down. But if you take any target out, and I like to take a brand new roll of masking tape, Tarbit tape, put it up on the chest and high in the chest, take an magic marker, put a circle. In essence, gives you a target about the size of a B8 bullseye center. Say that's your A zone or your down zero zone. And guess what? Everybody has to slow down a bit.
Yeah, it's like the group that we shoot with here on the ranch. We train with mainly on steel targets, and our perfect score zone in the center of the chest is a 7-inch circle. So if you get used to doing well on that, then when we shoot paper and we shoot a IDBA target, it's like, whoa, this is huge.
It's a gift.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't think that extra inch would make that much difference.
Yeah, and like I say, and there's other facets involved. From the days when you and I started, certainly, the key to shooting well is aligning a gun with the target and then pressing the trigger straight to your ear without messing up the alignment. That's never changed. Sights are dramatically better. Back when you and I started, everybody shot black on black sights, remember? And
generally, we could see back then, too. Remember how the rear notch was so tight, we just barely had any light on either side of the front?
It wasn't fuzzy back then, was it?
No.
Well, the kicker is, but we shot 10 targets, and normally a 125 thousandths front blade front and 125 notch rear, and we got by. Well, one thing that's happened is, besides we got a little older, is we have to find a new system where we can pick up the sights quicker. Mm-hmm. The notches have gotten wider, which has helped old guys like you and me. And we got fiber optic, which, has changed the world for everybody. So picking up the sight quickly and alignment actually gotten a bit easier. I think in many ways, and let's face it, one of the reasons the 1911 was king was because of the great triggers.
Yeah, because precision shooting is basically not disturbing the alignment of the gun when you get it aligned to where it needs to be. I mean, it's real easy to teach somebody how to aim a gun. Mm-hmm. That's extremely easy. Yeah. You made a diagram and they got it, Yeah. It's being able to teach people how to not disturb that when the gun goes bang. Yeah. It's the time between line up the sights and the bullet leaving the muzzle is the problem.
Things go south.
And lots of what makes it go south is poor manipulation of the trigger and gripping the gun. too lightly, not gripping the gun, because the lighter you grip the gun, the more precise your trigger press has to be. The tighter you grip the gun, the more trigger slap you can get by with,
Right.
and not push the gun out of the way.
Well, and it's like, both you and I mean, I tell people the most accomplished pistol shooter in history is Robbie Latham.
Oh yeah.
Nobody it's hard for me to believe nobody will ever be able to match him. In some ways, I think Rob's a cyborg. He's not a human, and Rob's I don't care who you are. If you're serious about this, you will learn a lot from Rob if you ever take a class or hang out with him. And he's almost like an encyclopedia.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that Rob talks about, well, don't worry about the sights and just jerk the heck out of the trigger, slap the trigger. And we understand what Rob really means, but unfortunately, it doesn't translate to the average person. You got to line up the sights. And his point is people worry more about lining the sights up than they do trigger manipulation. And the other thing is about, well, go ahead and yank the trigger. Well, yanking the trigger, the 1.5 pound trigger on a match gun is a lot different than yanking a 5 pound trigger on a Glock.
Oh yeah, the lighter the gun, the heavier the trigger, the harder they become.
Oh,
to
absolutely.
Shoot. Yeah.
And of course, one of the things we've learned on this speed versus accuracy thing that we didn't really dwell on before, we just accepted, is the way to what we call build the grip. The way you've got to be able to grip the gun in the holster the way you plan on shooting it. It's got to be a perfect grip.
Yeah.
And then once you build the grip, when your hands come together and how you apply that pressure, the more, and I always tell people, think in terms of putting a walnut between your palms and crushing that grip. So even if you do jerk the trigger, you're going to minimize the misalignment. And that's what Rob's message he's trying to get across. He almost oversimplifies it because as Rob Latham, being a cyborg, it's easy. For the rest of the stuff, people, this is hard.
Yeah.
But I think you combine all those things, the speed and accuracy will certainly improve. But I don't think there's any way you do this that to somehow rationalize that speed is more important than accuracy. Now, there are scoring systems in some competition games where as long as you get hits on a target, the time is far more important.
Yeah.
And when we sat down and started IDPA, it was one of the things we recognized that the trends in USPSA was starting to go that way, where speed was far more important scoring than accuracy.
Well, and early on, we even put too much emphasis on speed in IDPA and had to make some corrections through the years.
I can remember we talked about this. Originally, the scoring thing was going to be a third of a second. And when we did the invitational IDPA match in Columbia, Missouri, we tried that. I remember when the match was over, he came over and said, man, this isn't working. Those speed demons can still beat the system. And then we went to half a second. And a lot of people, when we first started, the Vickers count, which, by the way, Larry will tell you, evolved from Rob Latham.
Yeah.
But Larry was using, quote, his scoring system where he was stationed and he was in Delta, that 1.1 second, which really emphasizes accuracy over speed. And he recommended that. In hindsight, he was right because recently IDPA went to 1.1 second.
I don't even think two seconds is too much. I mean, and a lot like our local shooting group here, sometimes we do 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And that really makes people
That
focus
really
on hitting
makes
the target.
things different. And that's why I tell people, the reality is the really accomplished shooters, if you said, hey, it's 2 seconds for every point you drop, they will learn the skills necessary to win at that performance level. That's as long as the higher you set the bar, the higher people have to jump. And I think we've been long enough to see competition shooting evolve where the skill level, what you and I thought was good in 1976, today wouldn't even barely, you need binoculars to see where you finished on the bottom of on the score sheet. So there was a quote Larry Vickers now uses it that in relation to his training system, where accuracy fine or speed's fine, but accuracy is final. But really, that quote actually has been around for a long time, and it came from
Wild Bill
Wyatt Earp.
Wyatt Earp. It was one of the old gunfighters there.
The old gunfighters of the West. He was interviewed one time about what was important, and his quote is, survival skills is a lawman in the West and in gunfighting. In essence, that was his answer. We may be paraphrasing it, but accuracy is more important than speed.
Yeah.
And that really hasn't changed.
Well, especially if you had like a hostage situation or something like that. I mean, you need to train to be able to, maybe as far out as 10 yards, to be able to take a headshot where you just can't afford to miss.
Yeah. And if you think about it, if you're protecting your family, again, we always tell people, look, every bullet you launch has got a lawyer attached to it. And you want to make sure that the bullet goes where it needs to. And I always tell people, hey, the best bullet trap or backstop in the real world is the torso of your adversary. And if you watch your surveillance videos, you see these guys shooting like crazy, and guess what? They don't hit anything.
Yeah, very many times they shoot. That both sides are shooting, and nobody ever gets
nobody
hit.
gets hit, or a lot of innocent people get hit. So if you look at the guys that have look at Jim Cirillo was in 17 or more shootouts, and by the way, he didn't miss very often. As a matter of fact, generally it was over with pretty quick once he started shooting, or his partner Bill Allard. Both had one thing in common. They didn't accept anything but precision hits, and their results were pretty recommend. I mean, if you look at the history of what they did, obviously nobody wants to publicize much about it because that was an era where most people in America didn't want to hear about the reality of violence in our society. But they both understood that the best way to end a fight is to end it quickly, and that was with an accurate shot, not a lot of shots, and speed wasn't a factor.
Yeah. Well, Ken, thanks for visiting again. Folks, tune into our YouTube channel and subscribe, please, and we'll have some more interesting stuff for you in the future.